Chapter 6, Inland Regional Center, San Bernardino, California, Wednesday, December 2nd, 2015. Cameras. Rodolfo Remmy Ramirez loved cameras. He loved them. He was obsessed with them. He was in awe at what they could do, both as a conduit for others to see the beauty or reality he saw, and for the attention, respect, and even love they brought him. Born Valentine's Day 1972, raised and living in San Bernardino, California, one of his first memories was having his picture taken by his mom, Mariana, then being amazed as he was able to see himself on a little square piece of cardboard after only 60 seconds. He was awarded a Polaroid SX70 for good grades before he was even comfortable holding this magic machine. The only child of a single mother who, although she had been born in poverty, had studied hard, worked even harder, and had become a practicing divorce attorney in the San Bernardino, Colton, Redlands, Riverside area. Little Remmy wanted for nothing, including his own Polaroid SX70. It was that Polaroid that really opened his eyes to the power of the picture. He was a shy boy, having always had trouble making friends and speaking to others. He had trouble with eye contact and trouble finding any words to say when confronted by anyone, most especially his peers. Through his experimentation with his camera, he began to realize that the lack of confidence he found when looking directly at someone was replaced by the extreme amount of confidence he had staring at the very same person, but through the lens of his Polaroid. He took the camera with him on a field-class field trip to the San Bernardino History and Railroad Museum, where it quickly became apparent that it wasn't the museum that was the hit of the field trip, but rather Remmy and his SX70. Everyone wanted at least one photo taken, and Remmy, being a pretty smart kid for a shy 13-year-old, had brought lots of film for that very purpose. Remmy graduated quickly to the family Bill and Hal home movie camera, recording everything from their dog Max pooping in the backyard to his mom stepping out of her shower. Her scream was the stuff of family legend. Needless to say, his recording life in the Ramirez household became much more strictly supervised, which was a testament to his mother, Mariana. Although excellent at what she did, she continually made time for Remmy, even to the detriment of her expanding practice. She brought in other attorneys and staff, not to increase her bottom line, but to give her more time with and for her son. Early on, Mariana realized that she'd never have to worry about hauling Remmy to football, basketball, or even soccer practice. At that point, her responsibility became twofold: purchasing cameras, all Canon, her son was a Canon guy, and taking Remmy to any and all photographic classes, lectures, workshops, how-to sessions, and studies. Remmy was always overweight and nondescript. Not obese, not paunchy, just someone you'd look at and nothing would register. Not looks, not physique. Remmy was every man, except for his talent with his cameras, which was prodigious. About 6 feet, jet black hair, swarthy complexion. Nothing wrong with him, just nothing overwhelmingly right either. However, he had learned as a kid the power of whatever Canon camera he had in his hand at that moment. He had learned to manipulate emotions and feelings with a photo. He had learned to elicit laughter or tears with a picture. He learned as a young man almost every trick you could learn, and he began using them to his advantage. He started RR Photography and Video the day he graduated from Middle College High School in May 1990, and over the next 25 years it grew, wedding by graduation by holiday event, to encompass Riverside, Los Angeles, and down to Oceanside. There was one moment in 2010 that Remmy had over 50 photographers and assistants working for him. He was doing very well. However, he wasn't happy. Yes, all his employees had been well trained personally by him. Yes, he had also given them courses in customer service. However, as the money began to pour in, he did less and less of what he loved to do, and more of the reason he did not attend college. Less photography, more paperwork. And he began to receive more complaints. Brides and grooms would request something special, then be told that would be extra. Retirement lunches would run over, and the photographers would leave. Holiday events and golf tournaments resulted in classic photos rather than the creative touch Remmy had promised. Something had to be done. It was. Remmy downsized. Less employed photographers, far less mediocrity, more Remmy. He had no trouble doing that financially. He was only 38, and he wouldn't have to work a day again if he didn't want to. But he wanted to, ever since that day in the museum where all the other kids wanted him to take their picture. Remmy had lived for and loved that feeling. He loved it when people complimented him on his work. He loved getting positive feedback from his clients, be it photos or video. He had always considered a video event to be far harder to achieve any attitude or feeling. The camera was obviously on most of the time. You can't really pose, folks. That's too obvious. You must constantly think of composition, lighting, background noise, the location of any mics, how many cameras to shoot, the size of the room. Finally, what would the client like to see achieved? That's why Remmy loved video clients. The work was harder, but that's why the client came to him, because he could make the impossible very possible. By 2015, Remmy had downsized from 50 to 10 photographers. No, the money wasn't as good as in 2010, but the quality was better. The clients were much happier. Remy's incredibly good name was restored and was getting even more new luster and appreciation for what he and his staff were now able to accomplish. Including in his client list was the City of San Bernardino. Remmy was their go-to guy for everything video and photo related, including training seminars, golf tournaments, and holiday parties. The city would provide him a list at the beginning of every year, and Remmy himself would provide at least the supervisory expertise, if not the actual videoing. However, that training session holiday party coming up on December 2nd at the Inland Regional Center, 1365 South Waterman, was one of the more fun events of the year. Remmy himself would always do most, if not all, the smaller events. It was anticipated that 80 people would attend. Plus, Remmy had a very personal reason for videoing December 2nd. He had become fond of a young lady he had been calling and working with to help organize the event. She knew him, and most especially she knew of his work. He was hoping to ask her out after the party was over. Wednesday, December 2nd was a beautiful, bright, sunny day. It would ultimately reach the mid-70s. For Remmy, this beautiful day turned into a complicated challenge, as was typical of video. In the IRC, Christmas decorations had been hung up all over the training room. Tinsley, sun-reflecting Christmas decorations. He had been there since 6 a.m., trying to position his video cameras in a way that would not catch the reflections and blot out the training. Finally, at about 7:40 a.m., he and his 4 cameras placed where the instructors could be seen and heard, and the attendees as well. As everyone began to arrive, he noticed the young lady, who nodded and smiled in his direction. He also noticed a man looking at his cameras, noticing their location. He'd seen that a million times before. Remmy assumed that after the training, the gentleman would have questions about what he did, perhaps interested in an event of his own. Training for 80 staff members began promptly at 8 a.m. Remmy carried a recorder of his own, making sure that there would be a coherent record of the event, just in case the son did play tricks with his stationary cameras. At about 10:30 a.m., Remmy noticed the man who'd been interested in his cameras get up and leave. He left his bag at his seat, so Remmy thought nothing of it, figured he'd be back. At 10:55 a.m., Remmy went through a side door where he kept his equipment. He was having trouble with the glare with his handheld, as well as with some of the cameras in their present locations, so the trainers took a quick break. Remmy was working, trying to correct the light exposure. It was while he was fixing the challenge that he found himself staring out a window, looking into the training room. He corrected the exposures and was ready to head back out when he heard pops outside. A pock, pock, pock. He had never been around guns before, but he intuitively knew those were shots. He pushed record, trained his handheld camera through the window, and recorded a bloody massacre. 2 people dressed in black, one tall, one short, burst in, each firing AR-15 automatic rifles. As they mowed down attendees and trainers alike, brains and blood mixing with screams and panic, spraying the room with .223 caliber slugs. Police later said over 100 rounds were fired in 2 minutes. Remmy found himself amazingly calm, Standing behind the window, watching men and women destroyed, people pleading for their lives to no avail, feeling people crashing through the door behind him to escape the continuous firing, he kept his camera on the two. Mutt and Jeff, he thought. Tall, short. Then he realized that the tall one, amid ending lives, was shooting at all his cameras. That's the guy, he thought. The guy who was so interested in his equipment. It was at that moment he saw the tall one aiming at him. Then everything went black. Remmy woke up 2 days later in Loma Linda University Medical Center, a giant patch covering his left eye and bandages covering his head. As he opened his right eye, he heard a familiar scream, "Doctor! Doctor, my baby's alive!" His mother, Mariana, cried. His head hurt, particularly the left side. Although the medical staff tried to keep Mariana sedate and quiet, that was impossible. From what he could piece together from her and the doctors, his injury information should have been sent to Rome for proof of a miracle. Remmy had been standing at just the right angle, behind a thick enough plate of glass that the hail of bullets that were fired at him were deflected just enough so that only 2 struck him. The first bullet skipped high off the glass, entered his upper forehead, clipped a small portion of his skull, then exited through the front top of his head. The second bullet skipped to his left and dug a crease above his left ear. However, it was Mariana, through tear-stained eyes, who had to tell him that the shattered glass from that second bullet had entered in and around his left eye, permanently blinding him. If there was any good fortune, it's that his video camera was in front of his other eye. It was his remarkable bravery and poise in keeping his camera running that saved his right eye and probably his life. Through the cameras placed securely around the room, as well as Remmy's severely damaged handheld, police at the scene were able, through the viewfinders and replay, to determine the event timeline as well as an initial critical assessment of who the shooters were. This led to the shootout several hours later, where the husband-wife terrorists were gunned down. Shortly after he woke up, Remmy also heard that the young lady he'd wanted to ask out had been one of the 14 who had died. Out of his good right eye, he wept. Remmy didn't find out about his videos being police information until later, although he was quietly treated as a hero by all the police departments that played a part. Everyone was afraid of his videos coming to light and ending up in media hands. His role and the role of the tapes were never made public. He felt his life was over. The initial evaluations and his opening therapy sessions helped Remmy discover that his gift was gone. His perception, the way he could see an image, see a photograph's construction, see what made a certain shot unique, had vanished with his left eye. A woman had been attracted to him. He, her, was gone as well. It took several weeks to be discharged from Loma Linda. It ultimately took months of therapy to be able to walk without stumbling, move without knocking things over, even drive without putting himself and others at danger. That all came back. It didn't. From his hospital bed, Remmy closed his company. Once discharged from therapy, he traveled. He visited friends. He did everything except take a picture, except placing any sort of camera to his eye. He returned to San Bernardino several months after the shooting, headed to his local post office, and picked up a carrying bag full of mail. As he was sorting through the pile, he came upon a slightly larger envelope addressed to him, postmarked Columbine, Colorado. It startled him. It frightened him. He opened it. Dear Remmy, heroes shouldn't have to go through the loss you've suffered. To be able to stand there while death is only a moment away, yet able to provide authorities with everything they need, not caring about your personal safety, is an extraordinary act of bravery. They know about the tape. How could that be, Remmy thought. Sometimes the ones who lose their lives are the lucky ones. They don't carry scars around like you will. They don't have to grieve daily for the loss of a gift like you will. Who are these people? After reading the letter and following the instructions, Remmy, now Sanburn 22, entered the site and was immediately touched by all the well wishes and information on the San Bernardino subsite. While he was there, he received a chat request from Navy Yard 14, who quickly became one of his closest friends as well as his mentor. He spent quite a bit of time on the site over the next 2 years. As he became close to some of the members, including Fort Hood 44 and VT 57, Remmy became convinced that something, anything, had to be done to stop the gun death toll from spiraling. He just didn't know what. It was Stacy and Jerry, Fort Hood 44 and VT 57, that concocted the plan to assassinate Jim Mitchell, then later coupled it with Ray's assaulted plan. Through a private chat line on the assaulted site, Stacy and Jerry filled Remmy in on Ray's decision to act in a far more dramatic fashion than the gun violence that had been the case, but in very general terms, insisting that he meet Antioch 10. If Remmy agreed to Ray's proposal, they needed a cameraman who not only looked believable holding the camera, but also looked innocent enough to sneak weapons through a security system. Remmy filled the part perfectly. Tentatively, he agreed to be the third member, but only after hearing Antioch 10. On Wednesday, June 27th, Ray Wilson boarded United Flight 542 out of Dulles Airport, leaving 3:55 p.m. Landing in Denver, he switched to Flight 1521, which landed at Ontario International Airport at 8:30 p.m. While on the flight to Denver, then to California, Ray tinkered with the plan, now that Jerry and Stacy had laid out what hopefully would be a far easier method to reaching the NRA president. Did they need to storm the building? Did they need a show of force? Did he need to involve so many good people, men and women who had already been traumatized by gun violence, and ask them to wield weapons they had been on the receiving end of, and take another person's life? He decided to ask Sam Byrne 22 what he thought, then chat with Maxine later. As Ray left the terminal area, he spotted him. Heavy-set, jet black hair, slight scars around what looked to be a glass left eye, small smile on his face. "I understand you like to be called Remmy. I'm Ray Wilson." The very shy man didn't really make eye contact. "Hi, Ray. Who told you?" "Both Jerry and Stacy." Startled. I didn't think we were supposed to use names. "Only on the website. Hell, if I tried to remember everybody's handle, I'd lose my damn mind." That had been meant as a joke. No facial response from Remmy. "You said you'd be hungry. Got us reservations at an Italian place 2 blocks away." "Thanks, Remmy. I'm starving." They headed over to Ross's Cucina over on Vineland Avenue. Over in a back corner booth, they discussed Jerry and Stacy's plan. Ray did most of the discussing. Remmy would look every so often, nod, and look back down at either his food, lasagna, or his drink, red wine. Finally, Ray just stopped talking and waited for Remmy to look up. He did. Ray stared at him. "What's the deal?" "What do you mean, what's the deal?" "I've been talking for a half hour about what is supposedly your plan." "It's not my plan. I agreed to participate, but it's not my plan." "It was my understanding that you tentatively agreed to participate depending on my plan." "True." "Well, hell, if you're this enthusiastic about the first plan, how could I even begin to think you'd be anything other than downright hostile about the other plan?" A little moxie appeared in Remy's voice. "I'm not unenthusiastic." "What the hell are you then?" "Sad." Ray softened. "Why?" "It shouldn't have happened. It was a beautiful day. I had an easy gig. I was going to ask out a girl who was at the training." He began to cry. Ray slipped from his side of the booth, went to Remy's side. Remmy buried his face in Ray's shoulder and sobbed for a good 5 minutes, patting his back, murmuring, "It's okay. Let it out. It's okay," shooing the waitstaff away. Finally, Remmy composed himself. Ray moved back around. "I'm sorry. Thanks for the shoulder." "Don't worry. You aren't the first person I've done that for." But he was. "Anyway, as you can tell, I'm kind of a shy guy." A small smile from both. Yes, I can. But with a camera in my hand, I was a vastly different man. Confident, friendly. It was my crutch. It was my way of interacting with people. Now, he pointed to his left eye, it's gone. 2 monsters took it from me. 2 monsters with automatic rifles. Someone is going to pay for it all. Remmy, for the very first time that night, looked right into Ray's eyes. "Ray, I am very enthusiastic about our plan. Now tell me about yours." Ray did. Remmy said several things that resonated. He answered Ray's doubts about whether the plan was viable, including a new challenge Ray had discovered, that the NRA did not occupy the entire building, that they'd have to avoid the non-NRA floors, as Ray was explaining it. Remmy, in a tone Ray had not heard that night, a confident, self-assured Remmy, said, "The plan is excellent for 2 reasons. 1, it will draw attention away from Jerry, Stacy, and I, and especially from the security already in the building. 2nd, what's to say we do our job, and the next one in line follows what's been the standard NRA credo for the past umpteen years, and all our work goes down the drain." Ray, again a stare deep into Ray's eyes. "They all have to go." A silence overtook the booth. Ray had said it over and over, but it hadn't really sunk in until that very moment. They all have to go. All of them. No exceptions. Remmy dropped him off at his hotel near the airport. Ray immediately called Maxine. "Remy's in." Maxine had a different, worried, very quick tone in her voice. "Ray, we may have a challenge, and we may have a bus driver. I'm not sure which." "First of all, Max, calm down. We may have a bus driver. That's good. Now what's the challenge?" "He heard about the plan and volunteered." Ray's voice tightened. "Did he tell you how much he heard about it?" "No, he said he wanted to talk to you, and this seemed the best way." "He got that fucking right. You got his info?" "Yes." "Okay. After you give it to me, tell him I'll be flying into the closest airport to him to meet me at the fucking terminal to arrange for a place for us to go in public so I know I'm not being set up." Maxine chimed in. "That I'm not worried about." "Why?" "He's in his early 70s. He's not the type to bring in law enforcement." "Why?" "Because he was in jail. A federal penitentiary." "And you trust him?" "As you say, Ray. Yes. Yes, I do." Small smile. "Okay. Still in public, and tell him to be ready to give me some answers, and then I'll give him some as well." "Okay. You're flying to Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston 25."